I thought it would be fun to create some vintage nautical themed Valentine's card with a little bit of a postage feel. I'm using products from scrapbook.com and Waffle Flour. Hey everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. All right, let's start with our backgrounds. I am using patterned paper from scrapbook.com's Sunkissed paper pad. This is the A2 size paper pad. They also have a 6x8 paper pad too. I want to distress these, age these. So I'm starting with antique linen, and as you notice, I'm kind of going around the edges and even a little bit in the center. I'm trying to tone down the brightness of the pattern paper because it's really bright and playful and fun, but I want this to feel a little more vintagey. So I am doing that mainly with antique linen, and then I'm going to add a little bit of vintage photo around the edges. Two of these cards you're not going to see the center of, but I wasn't quite sure of that yet when I was doing this. I was still thinking about how my layouts were going to be. So to me, it was better to just give everything the distressed treatment, even the center, just in case I changed my mind or however I was going to do the layouts. So let's bring in that vintage photo, and I am using sponge daubers for this. You can use any kind of blending tools really. I would say the smaller, the easier to control how much you want to put on there. I tend to go now more towards the smaller blending tools unless I'm trying to just cover a whole background, because I feel like I have a bit more control. So I really do like these sponge daubers because they sit on your fingers and it's really, really easy to do. Now, isn't this crab pattern paper just the cutest? Oh my gosh, I love it. Of course, I picked my 3 favorites out of that Sunkissed patterned paper pad. I have the polka dots because I love a good polka dot. I love a good stripe too. I think those are classic. And then you have palm trees and then the little crabs. Speaking of crabs, here are these 2 cute little crabs that I die cut from the Coastal Charm die set. And I have die cut them from Spellbinders Sicily, which is the darker color, and Coral, which is the lighter color. And for this card design, I'm going to have 2 little crabs. And I just did a little bit of ink blending with the vintage photo. I'm going to do the same thing for the other 2 cards. One of our cards has the octopus. He is die cut from Teal Topaz and Waterfall. The Waterfall is the lightest color, and again, just taking that vintage photo and just adding some distressing in some of the areas. What I'm trying to accomplish with that, of course, the vintage look, is to really tone down all of these bright colors. Then we have our waves. These are from the Coastal Borders dies from scrapbook.com, and there's more waves than this, like a ton of good waves. I have another video that I put out more recently, a few videos ago, that shares a lot of these same products with some really simple Valentine cards. I am using the Waffle Flour Postage Collage die on all 3 of my cards, but for this card, I'm going to cut all of these apart because I want to start laying them out to see how I want or what stamps I want to use on these backgrounds. So I needed to cut it apart to see that. But first, before I can get to any stamping, we're going to take Waffle Flour's Postage Collage Stencil and stencil the background. So this leaves your outside postage edge not colored. And because I have it on Kraft cardstock, I want to be able to see that around the edge. So I am using, oh my gosh, what am I using here? Broken China for the centers of this. The other 2 cards, that Postage Collage die from Waffle Flour is going to be whole. I am not going to cut that apart, so we're going to stencil that as well. I did want to mention the waves were die cut from Oceanside, Malibu, and Breeze cardstock from Spellbinders. Okay, let's bring in the background. This is our second background. The pattern paper is our first background. This is our second background because we're going to layer these backgrounds together. Let's use some cracked pistachio on this, just ink blending inside of those little rectangles and squares. Again, it leaves all around the postage areas the same color cardstock, which I really love that. But you don't have to do that. You could ink blend the whole thing if you wanted the whole thing one color. But I definitely like the Kraft color cardstock. I think it goes perfect when you're doing vintagey things. And then we're using saltwater taffy for our third card. Then on top of that, I'm going to leave that Postage collage stencil on top, and I am using the heart stencil from scrapbook.com because these are Valentine cards. So I'm going to use a little bit of vintage photo and add some hearts. But again, I did not want any color on the postage edge of our die here. So using that stencil, laying the other stencil on top, and then just ink blending those hearts with that vintage photo. Now, that first card that we cut apart, the Postage collage die, I'm not going to stencil on those pieces, but I am going to stencil the hearts on that full background. So the polka dot background, you're going to see that. And I didn't want the hearts to interfere with my stamping that I'm going to be doing on our little cut apart postage pieces. So let's ink blend our hearts, or excuse me, stencil our hearts onto that background. And look at how cute that is. I love it. Okay, let's stamp our images onto our little postage pieces here. This is from Waffle Flower. This is the Postage Collage Tropical Sunset. I have 2 palm trees. I love palm trees, and so I love this stamp. And then I have a little boat with some birds. I started by inking with oh my gosh, what did I ink? Oh, Gathered Twigs. Sorry guys, my brain just totally blanked. It was too light, so I brought in ground espresso. I did not want a black ink. I didn't want anything super dark like that on the cards. So ground espresso to me was like the next darkest, but it wasn't completely black. So it was perfect. Okay, in my splatter box, I am going to splatter my backgrounds with Distress Spritz. This is Salvaged Patina Distress Spritz. For this one, for the next one, I am using Cracked Pistachio, and I shook these up really good. I'm just taking the lid off and giving us some splattered dots. This is going to dry nice and shiny and shimmery. And then I'm using Saltwater Taffy for this background. So I'm trying to coordinate most of the colors. Salvage Patina really didn't, I wasn't using that on the other color background, but it still worked for me. All right, let's put these crabs together. How cute are they? I have die cut the eyes from black and white mixed media cardstock from scrapbook.com. Again, the crabs are die cut from Sicily and coral cardstock from Spellbinders. And these little guys are so cute. I love a crab. I love to eat a crab and to look at a crab. But I just thought this is a fun color combination instead of just always doing red. I mean, I know that there's like blue crab out there and things like that, but I thought these corally colors would be really fun. And then the eyes, there's 2 parts of that. There's also a little mouth, and I liked keeping them in the die cut themselves so I don't lose them. And I can just glue them onto each other, and then once they're dry, I can just pop them out with my Pick Pro tool and then just adhere everything down. So we have that darling little mouth. I just think he's so cute. Well, both of them are cute. And then we can pop these eyes out and get those in place. And I'm just using the wax end of my Pick Pro tool to grab them and place them on. And then I'm using my little pointy end tool just to make sure everything is lined up and in the right spot. So this tool is really super handy. Okay, the next guy we're going to put together is our octopus. He is die cut from Teal Topaz and Waterfall. And he has some little eyes with some eyelashes. Well, I guess it's a she then. And so I'm going to put those on. And the mouth is debossed in using the die cut. And I kind of wish I would have left it blank. I don't think it looks horrible, but I wish I would have left it just not adding a mouth. But I did use my black luster marker, and it has a very fine tip because it's like a brush tip and it goes very fine. So I was able to color it in, but I kind of wish I would have left it alone if I'm being honest. Okay, so that one is done, and then we're going to start putting the card together. So some of the stuff I am going to speed up just a little bit because this video is already kind of long and we don't need it to be any longer than it is. Oh, first we're going to do this embossing folder. This is the Polka Dots embossing folder from scrapbook.com. It's new, and I'm going to emboss all the large hearts. Now let me just mention, right now at the time of filming, For all 4 of their new embossing folders, it's a bundle for $21.99. That is a killer deal, and all 4 of them are amazing. But I wanted to add polka dots to this because I love a good polka dot. So again, I will have that listed and linked for you guys below in the description, and that is limited time or while supplies last. $21.99 for 4 embossing folders. Okay, let's add a little bit of vintage photo to our hearts, and I'm just roughly adding it. And when I say roughly, there is nothing I'm trying to do other than get some around the edges, get some on the dots. Like, it just didn't even matter how perfect or not perfect. I just wanted it to have a little bit of color. Then in my MISTI, I have some Kraft cardstock. This is Kraft cardstock from Gina K. And I'm going to stamp my sentiments from the Hooked on You stamp set, and there is a coordinating die. I prepped my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. I'm inking that up with my clear Versamark ink, and I like to ink it up a few times. I want a really good image because I don't want to have to do it again. I sprinkled on my white embossing powder, and then I'm heating that with my heat tool. And then I'm going to use the coordinating dies to die cut out my sentiments. And I will use a dry cloth once everything cools down to lightly buff off that powder. 1mm foam adhesive behind my 2 waves that are in front. At first I thought I was going to glue them together, and I'm not sure what I was thinking. So I need to glue them onto the cardstock first. So I'm going to go down a little bit lower than half, and I'm going to layer on these gorgeous waves, again, from the Coastal Borders die set from scrapbook.com. And then, of course, I did not glue it on straight. So I'm just going to adjust some things, and then I'm going to add that 3rd one, and then I'm going to have to pull it up and push it up a little bit higher. The troubles of card making, I guess. And then I'm going to start tucking in our little postage images. So I have 1mm foam adhesive behind that guy. I'm going to use 2mm behind this one. And then I'm just going to tuck them into the waves, which I think is really cute. It just brings all of that, all of the waves and the postage things together on the right side as this little collection, but then you can still see the waves. I didn't want to cover up all the waves, so leaving that open on the left-hand side just kind of reveals that in the card design. Then we have the sentiment and our few little hearts that we are going to tuck in and around because, again, it's a Valentine's Day card, so I want it to feel a little bit hearty here. And this sentiment says, "I'd lose myself in your waves forever." So cute. Then we have our octopus one here. This is solid, our solid postage collage die. I added 1mm foam adhesive. It's about 1 inch wide on the back of those pieces, and then 1mm behind our octopus here. And the sentiment here says, "You occupy my mind," which is really cute. And then, of course, we're going to add 3 hearts around our octopus, but let me get that sentiment in place. That is going to have 2mm foam adhesive. And I love the pop of white, and we're going to add a little more white. And you guys have probably heard me say this when I'm doing distressing, vintagey type things. A lot of the times I add white, whether it's in splatter or sentiment or both, or just something that has white. To me, that just really makes everything else pop, and it breaks up all of the other grungy background with a little bit of bright white, and I love that look. Okay, I added the 1mm foam adhesive behind that postage collage die, just like I did on the octopus one. I'm adding 2mm foam adhesive behind our darling little crabs here. I actually think this is my favorite card out of the 3. I totally thought it was going to be the waves one, and I love them all, don't get me wrong, but I think this crab one is my favorite. So let me know in the description if you have a favorite one, or in the comments, not in the description. Then I'm adding 1mm and 2mm foam adhesive behind our large hearts and our small hearts, 2mm foam adhesive behind our sentiment that says, "You're my favorite catch." And then we're going to add our little tiny hearts buddied up against our bigger hearts here. And I'm just going to do them at different angles. And I like that the little hearts did not have polka dots, so it adds a little more visual interest by them being a little bit different. Okay, let's add some white splatter. Get that white luster marker out and start splattering. I was being careful to not get splatter on the sentiments and not too much on the main images. I didn't mind a lot of them on the waves, but I didn't want to like cover everything up, if that makes sense. Let's bring in our octopus. I'm going to squeeze a little bit more of that out on my glass mat here. And I'm trying to get some bigger droplets. That first card, I got a ton of little droplets. I was kind of going for more bigger ones. So I'm going to bring that in and add a couple more bigger ones there. And then our crab one. And trying not to get too much on the crabs, but just enough, just enough. And I love that white. All right, let's take a look at these up close. Here is the Darling Waves. This is our vintage Valentine, Nautical Valentine cards, and I just love how they turned out. And we have some shiny bits with the Distress Spritz. Look at all the fun, the postage dies, the cute little ocean critters. And then this darling little crab card. Oh my gosh, I love it. And the fun pattern paper. Everything just turned out so perfect on these cards. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video. And thank you again. I hope you feel inspired by these projects. And I'll be back soon with another video. Bye!